Matthew, the Shannon Group is an engine for huge economic growth in the Midwest, comprising of the airport, visitor attractions and property interests. What exactly does the group comprise of?
You're right. The Shannon Group is is the primary catalyst for economic growth in the west of Ireland. So there's really four entities within the Shannon Group. So probably the best known is Shannon Airport, the gateway to the Wild Atlantic Way, and we're just under 2 million passengers, having just delivered our 5th year of passenger growth.
Very good.
Our second is Shannon Commercial Properties. We inherited the former property portfolio of Shannon Development. And I think we're one of the biggest landholders and property developers in Ireland. Very exciting business. We have 7 business parks. We have we have the Shannon Free Zone, which I believe is the biggest multi-sectoral park outside Dublin. And we see real good growth taking place there. There's a market that's developing very quickly. We also have Shannon Heritage, which is it's 8 tourist attractions, plus we have an interest in the Cliffs of Moher, but that comprises the likes of Bunratty, of King John's Castle. But we also, not as well known, we run the GPO in Dublin and Malahide Castle, and we were delighted to recently have won Newbridge from Fingal Council.
Excellent.
And then the final one is the International Aviation Services Centre, which is a cluster of, we operate Ireland's aerospace cluster. So at Shannon Free Zone, just outside the airport, we have more than 60 aviation and aerospace companies.
Wow.
Again, growing quickly and a real driver of economic development in this region.
It's a real multi-layered group, if you like. How many are employed, and what's the sort of economic value to the west of Ireland?
Yeah, we have in the summer months we employ about 650 people across the portfolio. But you're right. We provide infrastructure, so the economic impact is staggering. Yeah. We undertook an economic impact analysis last year, and that showed that we support 46,500 jobs in the west of Ireland. We contribute 3.6 billion a year in terms of GVA, and I think we generate just under 1.2 billion of tax revenues for the Exchequer each year. So we provide key infrastructure, and you only have to look at the fact that the likes of 40% of American FDI is in our catchment area, and you begin to understand how the figures get so big.
Absolutely, it's really remarkable. Looking at the airport specifically, it was granted its independence, of course, from DAA back in, I think, 2013 or 2014 by the then Tourism Minister, now Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar. How has that period been? I know you've only been in the role, I think, 18 months, 2 years.
That's right.
But how have the last 5 years been for the newly independent Shannon Airport?
I think incredibly exciting, and I think being given autonomy and independence and being responsible for your own future has created a lot of dynamism and a lot of oomph into the organisation.
Exciting and nerve-wracking at the same time.
I think that's probably a good way of capturing it. You look and you say, well, in the 5 years since we were separated, we've enjoyed 5 years of passenger growth, whereas I think passenger numbers had fallen for 5 years in the immediately preceding period. We've seen passenger numbers grow by 25%, so we're by far the fastest growing airport outside Dublin.
Excellent.
We have 24 new routes have been launched. We have seen 20% growth in transatlantic passengers. We've seen 80% growth in European traffic. So it's been a very exciting time. I think we're absolutely not complacent though. It is a very competitive marketplace. And whilst we desperately want the benefits of increased connectivity and enabling more tourism flows into the west of Ireland, we're not just operating in a competitive Irish market. It's really an international market for traffic and for airlines to choose to base their capacity.
Absolutely. And looking at 2018 specifically, how is the airport performing? Are you still in that growth phase?
Yeah, it's going to turn out to be a pretty good year for us.
Good.
We've seen growth of almost 7% year to date. So we've seen new routes started to Royce in Barcelona, to Liverpool and Bristol in the UK. Really excited about our new Air Canada service to Toronto, which has been going very well. So yeah, we're anticipating growth with further additional capacity going into North America at the end of the year.
Excellent.
So Norwegian will be going daily to Stewart in New York come, I think it's end of October, November time. We'll have year-round service to JFK with Lingus. So it's proven to be a good year. But it all starts again for 2019.
It does, of course, and as others say in the industry, we start at zero on January 1st, and of course next year is the year of Brexit.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of routes in and out of Britain, so it must be a concern, and we're all hoping that there's kind of a soft a Brexit as possible, but it's that unknown that's the real concern, isn't it?
I think that's right. You can only plan very assiduously for what might happen. So, over 40% of our business is to the UK, and I think we're one of the less exposed of the airports outside Dublin. It wouldn't take much for it to have a real impact on our sector. We like to think there are going to be some opportunities in terms of maybe businesses relocating out of the UK, but the real here and now is, what's the impact going to be both to the freedom with which airlines can operate, but then the tourism flows, whether it's changes in exchange rates or really an economic impact in the UK, impacting on the disposable income of a good chunk of our tourists. Yeah. So it's feels a little bit like the Y2K thing back at the turn of the century, and you're kind of hoping it's going to be nothing, but you can't help but think there's going to be an impact. Yeah, well, we need to be ready.
The Y2K did turn out to be a sort of a damp squib, so hopefully Brexit will, but who knows?
You don't kind of think so, do you? It's going to be degrees, and I think all we can do is be as prepared as we possibly can be, and there's nothing like an impending shock to really get your ass into gear in terms of, we need to take responsibility for developing not just connectivity, but developing the regional economies and really ensuring we're fit for the fight.
Absolutely. And airports and the whole aviation sector is so competitive, as you say. We all know Dublin Airport's numbers. In your view, is aviation traffic overly skewed to the capital, and does that represent an opportunity maybe for Shannon to eat some of the lunch that other airports are enjoying?
I think the first thing I'd say is the team at DAA and Dublin Airport in particular have done really well over the last 5 years. Mm-hmm. I mean, you look at the amount of passenger growth to and from Ireland in the last 5 years. I think there's roughly 10 million more passengers coming to and from. Great news. And I think having a healthy capital city airport is incredibly important for Ireland Inc. I think maybe the observation would be is we want a successful Dublin airport, but I think we also want successful airports to the rest of Ireland too. And maybe what we've seen over the last 5 years or so is 95% plus of the growth has gone into Dublin. I think that was great when it was really important that we re-established connectivity to Ireland following the economic crisis at the end of the 2000 decade. I think now we're talking about a new phase where we're looking to deliver 2040. We recognise that we want new connections and new markets to be opened up into Dublin, but equally we want the benefits of, let's take European connectivity across Ireland in order that FDI grows up around those airports as well. So it's not an easy one to wrestle with. It's fair play to the guys in Dublin Airport, but it's now a question of how do we create an airport system that's going to deliver those goals of the 2040 plan, and really the development of the second tier cities such as Galway, Limerick, Cork, Waterford. They ain't going to do it without air connectivity.
Yeah, I think in that Ireland 2040 plan, the regions outside of Dublin are expected to grow faster than the capital city itself. But as you say, regional access is key to that.
I think it's going to be. I mean, I think you're right. You're talking about population growth of roughly 50%, I believe, in the second tier cities. We know that strategic connectivity to key business routes is one of the hygiene factors that FDI companies bear in mind when they're choosing where to locate. So it's obvious that there needs to be a corollary. I think the challenge is sometimes, how do we align aviation policy to ensure that we have a healthy aviation system in Ireland in 5 and 10, 15 years' time?
Moving the discussion to Shannon Heritage, you now operate 8 visitor attractions, including Bunratty Castle and, of course, King John's Castle and some of the well-known sites in the Shannon region, but also, as you mentioned, some of the now iconic Dublin attractions. How is that side of the business performing? Is it enjoying the tourism boom that the rest of the country seems to be having?
Yeah, it's a business that is developing very quickly, which is great. You know, we've seen our visitor numbers double between 2012, I believe, and sort of 2016, 17. We're seeing the growth carry on. We're hopeful of going through 1 million visitors across our portfolio this year for the first time, which would be great. But we see significant opportunity for growth in the future on the heritage side. But it's also, we're very mindful of the economic impact of our heritage business, you know, the kind of little nuggets of information you pick up. But our heritage attractions were shown to have generated 253,000 hotel nights in 2016. We believe 4 in 10 tourism jobs are in this region are dependent on the Shannon Group. So we kind of take the responsibility here of, okay, we're lucky to have a really good portfolio of attractions. How do we turn them into compelling tourism attractions that are really going to drive disruptive tourism growth? You know, we're not really interested in incremental growing with the market. We want to see major shifts in tourism. And really, we are questioning and challenging ourselves with, well, what do we do with our existing portfolio in that environment? What do we do with potential new sites that we could take on, like the new bridges of this world? But equally, how does our entertainment need to evolve to become relevant to, you know, a more independent, younger, experiential tourist that we want to bring to Ireland in the future, and really give them a compelling value proposition.
You sound quite optimistic and, if you like, ambitious for both the Shannon Group's future and Irish tourism's future. How does Irish tourism compare when you look at your international experience? Because, you know, we talked off camera, but you have experience stateside, in the UK, in Europe. How is the Irish tourism, if you like, product or experience fare when looking at those, and how do you see the next few years panning out?
It's, you know, probably declare interest at the start, or conflict of interest, that I'm utterly biased. So there's nothing like living in the States and Canada for a few years to appreciate just how rich Ireland's heritage is. You know, there aren't medieval castles in North America. What you tend to find is the tourism product in North America in particular, but to an extent in Australia, is they make more with what they've got. So they're exploiting their natural market opportunities, if you like. I think in Ireland we have a wonderful, wonderful value proposition to offer. I think we need to invest in it to communicate exactly what it means to come to Ireland on holiday, to all sorts of different holidaymakers from different cultures around the world. But it's, I would be optimistic and I would be upbeat, but it's essential that we take the industry very, very seriously, and we invest in it accordingly. We put the policies in place that are going to enable it to flourish.
And on that point, do you think the government and the Irish state takes tourism seriously, or invests enough, or puts in place the right sort of policies?
A fairly loaded question. I think we could do more. You know, I think if you look at the rural economy, which is obviously one of the key targets of the Ireland 2040 plan, tourism it's not just that it's a big employer, but it's a natural employer, and it's, you know, it presents a huge opportunity for stimulating rural communities. I think equally, you know, it's Limerick is being developed into a gateway city for the Wild Atlantic Way. You know, so tourism flows can complement what's happening in terms of more on the industrial side and driving. So I think recognising the importance of tourism, coupled with the opportunity that it presents to tick a lot of boxes in the future development of Ireland, I think is a bit of a no-brainer. Would I like to see more? You know, would I like to see the environment supported for both investing and developing and creating a compelling product. Absolutely right.
Great, Matthew, thanks for your time, and
Absolutely
congratulations on all the great work to date, and we wish you all the best of luck in the future.
Thanks very much.